or parliamentary practice because one internal rules may differ from one another. Kaya ang pakiusap ko sa inyo, when you go back to your respective stations, please prioritize na mabasa nyo ang internal rules ng inyong sanggunians. Para should there be question regarding procedural matters, then kaya nyong sagutin siya by simply using the internal rules of procedure of the sanggunian. Kaya minsan may ang pinaka-war situation na may mga ibang sanggunian na wala talaga internal rules, no? Pero anyway, in case na gano'n ang setup, hindi nila, they failed to review, they failed to update, adapt the previous internal rules, then it is as if they are applying parliamentary practice. Because dahil yun ang ginagamit ng mga nakakaraan, it has ripened into a parliamentary practice, which can also be a source of parliamentary rules. At the end of the day, ang ano nila would be still the decision of the majority. Okay? So, ano pa bang mga... So, yun nga, pagdating sa motions, I don't intend to discuss it thoroughly in details kasi nga, maiba-iba. Baka it will only cause confusion among, okay lang sana kung maliit ang crowd natin but this is nationwide. So I could imagine the extent, napakarami, tapos biglang yun ang maituro ko sa rules on motion, yun pala, iba ang practice sa inyo, iba rin ang ano. So best is read the internal rules. Okay? Yung mga Supreme Court rulings, I advise you to read or research recent Supreme Court decisions. Then marami dyan ang mga gray area sa local code that were resolved by the Supreme Court. So marami siya. Kaya I urge you to, as part of your job, as your guidance, of course, the local code, then as reference, Supreme Court rulings. Now, DILG opinions. Okay, are DILG opinions, can it be a source of parliamentary rules like decision of the Supreme Court? The answer is no, because DILG opinions are not laws. But DILG opinions carries weight. Ito ang mga kinukonsider nilang executive interpretations of laws. Kaya pag naglabas ng department ng opinion, relevant din yan because yan ang paniniwalaan ng Supreme Court. For as long as it is correct, naniniwala ang Supreme Court sa expertise ng isang departamento. If you will be asked, in case of conflict between DOJ opinion and DILG opinion, which should prevail? Okay, as a matter of practice, DOJ does not answer opinions from the field. Sasagot lang ang DOJ ng opinion ng mga queries kung ang nagtanong ay ang mismong secretary ng isang departamento or isang undersecretary ng isang departamento. But other than those people, DOJ normally, as a matter of practice and policy, Department of Justice would decline answering queries. I-refer din nila yan doon sa departamento considered to be expert in the implementation of that law. Kaya if you will be asked, mayroong conflict between DILG opinion, DOJ opinion. But if that happens, then DOJ opinion prevails, being the Attorney General of the national government. Pero bihira mangyari yan. Bihira lang. Okay. So, ano pa bang na-miss natin dito sa ano? Sa law, yung procedural rules, ang bantayan nyo sa parliamentary practice, itong mga review. No? Very critical itong mga review. Okay. Now, sa review ng ordinance, di ba, nire-review ng higher level ang ordinansa. Nire-review ng sanggunian. So ang query, are all ordinances forwarded to the higher sanggunian for review? Answer, yes. On the other hand, are all resolutions forwarded to the higher sanggunian for review? Answer, no. Only resolutions approving the local development plan and investment programs are submitted to the higher sanggunian for review. Okay? So not all resolutions are subject to the approval, to the review authority of the higher sanggunian. In fact, in the same situation, pag ang isang ordinansa ay naaprubahan na ng sanggunian, how do you call that? You call it enacted ordinance. You read section 54 of the local code. Ang sinabi dyan, the enacted ordinance shall be forwarded to the local chief executive for approval. So therefore, if an ordinance, proposed ordinance is approved by the sanggunian level, it is not yet considered approved. It is still considered enacted ordinance. And that enacted ordinance ay ipo-forward kay Mayor for approval. Okay. Ba't ko tinatanong yan? Because all enacted ordinance are to be forwarded to the Mayor for approval. How about resolutions? Answer, no more. You read 54, 55, 56. Only resolutions approving local development plan and investment program, ito lang ang binigyan si Mayor ng veto power. So therefore, kung may veto power siya on those kind of resolutions, then it follows that subject to the approval of the Mayor. So all other resolutions, other than those two mentioned, are not anymore subject to the approval of the Mayor or the Governor, as the case may be. So in the same vein, hindi mo na rin iakyat yan sa taas for approval. Okay? For review. Okay. Another very important parliamentary procedure written in the law, itong review. Effectivity. Maganda to. Effectivity. Pending review by the higher sanggunian, is the law already effective? Or is the ordinance already effective?
Yes po.
Okay, general rule is,
Yes.
Yes po.
tandaan nyo lang, ang general rule is that effectivity is governed by section 59, while validity is governed by 56 and 57 of the local code. So what is being reviewed by the higher sanggunian is the validity of the ordinance. But effectivity is a separate thing. So, ibig sabihin, pending review of its validity, the ordinance becomes effective as of the date it is so provided to be effective. So, pag sinabi ng ordinansa effective on May 1, then so be it. So, halimbawa, today, naglabas tayo ng ordinansa, lower sanggunian. Nilagay natin, this ordinance shall take effect May 1, 2021. Bukas, pinorward natin sa sanggunian panlalawigan, halimbawa. Hindi panlalawigan, nagmamadali sila. Sabi nila, kailangan by December 31, 2020, zero backlog. So December 30, 29, sabi ng sanggunian panlalawigan, approve. So na-approve na on review ang municipal ordinance. Query, can that municipal ordinance be already implemented? having been approved on review? Answer, not yet, because the effectivity date has not yet arrived. Klaro?
Yes,
Yes.
Kung ang effectivity date na nilagay natin ay May 1, 2021, then kahit at this point in time, sinabit na natin for review, inaprubahan na during review, it cannot yet still be, its effectivity is May 1. Now, conversely, halimbawa, ordinance ngayon, sinabi natin, this ordinance shall take effect January 5, 2021. Pinorward natin for review. Dumating na ang January 5, 2021. Wala pang result ng review. Can we now implement it because it's the effectivity date? Answer, yes. That can now be implemented. That it is the effectivity date. Query, what if pagdating ng January 10, the Panlalawigan advised the lower LGU that its ordinance is declared invalid?
Should be
Section 58 will apply. Ano nakalagay Section 58? Suspension of implementation of a disapproved ordinance. So klaro yan ha? Klaro yan na so therefore ang effectivity is determined by the sanggunian kung kailan nila gusto maging effective. Now, query. Ito pwede nyo pagpustahan ng mga LGU. Batch 53. Anong ordinansa ang hindi pwedeng pakialaman ng sanggunian with regard to its effectivity? May isang ordinance dyan na hindi nila pwedeng sabihin effective May 5, effective, hindi nila pwedeng gawin ganun. Because ang effectivity, isang date ang talaga. Ano yun?
Budget.
Annual
Budget ordinance.
Appropriations
annual
ordinance.
appropriation. Because under the local code, an annual appropriation shall take effect at the beginning of the ensuing year. So therefore, hindi pwedeng sabihin. So all other ordinances, the sanggunian can control the date of effectivity except annual appropriation ordinance. Because it is always effective as of the beginning of the ensuing year. Okay, ano pa ba dyan ang mga maraming gray area dito sa rules, especially on review. On review. Ito maganda. The case of Muday, sa review tayo the case of Muday versus Court of Appeals. Muday versus Court of Appeals. May isang bayan naglabas ng ordinansa expropriating the property of Mr. Moreno. Sabi niya, ordinance expropriating the property of Mr. Moreno. Of course, under the local code, municipal ordinance is forwarded to the Sangguniang Palalawigan for review. So pagdating sa Sangguniang Palalawigan, ang query ngayon, ano ang parameters ng review ng Sangguniang Palalawigan? Now in this case of Muday, sabi ng Sangguniang Palalawigan, ordinance disapproved. The property that should be expropriated by the municipality is the property of Mr. Patricio. Note carefully, ang desisyon ng Sangguniang Bayan ay property ni Mr. Moreno ang i-expropriate. Are you familiar with expropriation? Eminent domain?
Yes po.
Yes po.
Yes po.
Okay. So ito yung i-expropriate nila. Now, sabi ng Sangguniang Palalawigan, mali. It should be the property of Mr. Patricio and not of Mr. Moreno. So Sangguniang Palalawigan came up with a resolution disapproving the ordinance, saying that palitan nyo. Instead of Moreno, dapat property ni Patricio. The municipality went to Supreme Court and questioned the validity of the action of Sangguniang Panlalawigan, and the issue raised is the parameters of review by the Sangguniang Panlalawigan. The Supreme Court said that the parameters of review ng panlalawigan, ang scope ng parameter ay isa lang. Whether to determine as to whether or not the subject matter of the ordinance is within the authority of the municipal government. So what should have been examined by the panlalawigan here is whether or not may power to expropriate ang munisipyo. If the answer is yes, affirm the ordinance. If the answer is no, disapprove the ordinance. But it is not for the panlalawigan to determine whose property is to be expropriated. Klaro ha? Sabi ng Supreme Court, that will be a substitution of the legislative wisdom of the Sangguniang Bayan. So therefore, ang parameters of review ng Sangguniang Panlalawigan is only to determine as to whether or not the subject matter of the ordinance is within the authority of the local government unit. And since under Section 19, the LGU, the municipality has the power to expropriate, then it has to be declared approved or valid, regardless of whose property is to be expropriated. Okay, now in relation to expropriation, bantayan nyo rin to kasi maraming adopted internal rules nang sinasabi nila ang expropriation is done only by resolution, authorizing the expropriation and authorizing the mayor to file the expropriation case in court. Saan na nilagay? Adopted internal rules. However, as early as 1998, in the case of Parañaque versus BM Realty Corporation, the Supreme Court said that the authority for the mayor to file the expropriation case in court must be contained in an ordinance and not in a resolution. Again, note the distinction between the two. So sabi ng Supreme Court, consistent with Section 19, nakalagay sa 19, acting pursuant to an ordinance. So therefore, a resolution cannot suffice to authorize the mayor to file the expropriation case in court. It has to be by way of ordinance. Okay, now, those LGOO in cities and highly urbanized city, mag-ingat kayo sa expropriation kasi mayroong isang requirement pa dyan. Ano yun? The application of Section 9 of RA 7279 na bago kayo nag-expropriate for housing purposes, nag-expropriate kayo ng private property in highly urbanized or urbanizable area, kailangan may pakita nyo na naghanap muna kayo ng other available government or other properties other than that private property. Kailangan may pakita nyo sa court na naghanap muna kayo. The exception is when the expropriation is intended for on-site socialized housing project. So bantayan nyo ha, although hindi yun part sa internal rules, kwento ko lang para makita nyo yung pag-apply ng Section 54 in relation to 19 of the local code. Okay? Okay, so there are many more Supreme Court rulings. So with the technology now, with the internet, etc., I would expect you to be also familiar with Supreme Court rulings. There are many. Okay? Ngayon, mga gray areas na hindi nyo talaga masasagot, pwede nyo nang ibato yan sa central office. Depende sa policy ng opinion making ng department. Dati kasi, when I was with the department, lahat ng opinions should emanate from the secretary. Dahil the secretary is the alter ego of the president. So siya lang ang dapat maglabas ng opinion with the force and effect as if issued by the President of the Republic of the Philippines. Pero nung umalis ako sa department, they already allowed regional directors to issue DILG opinions. Kaya marami ding opinions ang medyo kinu-question sa field dahil regional director lang ang naglabas. But technically kasi dapat secretary as the alter ego of the president. RDs are not alter ego of the president. Alter ego sila ni secretary but not of the president. And it is the president who is given by the Constitution the power to give executive interpretations. So yung kay secretary na opinion is only derivative from that of the president's power. Okay? Okay, so siguro with the assignment now that you read your adopted internal rules, kasi bawat parliamentary internal rules will differ from one another, doon na lang kayo mag-focus. But of course, ang gawin nyo na lang is try to be cognizant with law, decision, etc., yung sources of parliamentary rules. Now, ang adopted internal rules, you need to have a special study on that para masagot yung mga query nila. Okay, pag wala doon sa adopted internal rules, you go down, parliamentary practice. Pag wala pa rin doon, you go down, parliamentary authors, and you have Reverendo Dihan and other, Orinda In, another famous Filipino parliamentary author. Ang mga foreign, sila Roberts, yung mga ganyan. Now, customs and usage, ito very ginagamit ito in Sangguniang barangays, lalo na doon sa mga hinterlands na mayroon silang mga customs. Are this part of the procedure? Yes. Can this be waived? Yes. So again, yung sinasabi ko, can be waived, suspended, disregarded. It applies only from adopted down to customs and usage. Law, decisions, no. Okay? So siguro, mas marami ako matakel, depende sa inyong concern. So, Mr. or Ms. Moderator, can we start with the open forum now para alam ko mas marami ako matakel yung actual concerns nila.
Yeah, yes sir, you could we could start na po yung ating open forum if there are any questions that they might ask. O,
sige.
habang andyan po sir kayo, sila po ay handa po magtanong po sa inyo po. Thank you.
Sige.
Dave, meron lang sir kasi dito unang-unang nag-question
Okay,
kanina. Yung kay Philip Vilena ng Region 3. Ang question niya po sir is, in the case that the internal rules of procedures is not yet adopted and one member of the Sanggunian has disorderly conducted himself during the session, how will the member be sanctioned?
Okay. Ganito yun, no? There are two kinds of, para maklaro lang, there are two kinds of disciplinary action. The disciplinary action filed pursuant to Section 60 and 61 of the Local Code, and there is also what we call disciplinary sanctions pertaining to internal rules of the disorderly behavior of the Sanggunian. Okay. Ito yung Section 50. Ito yung hindi na kailangan ng decision. The mere voting consensus of the Sanggunian as a body, pwede nang they can come up with a common judgment. Query. Ang sabi ni Sir, wala pa raw. Hindi pa nakapag-adapt ng internal rules at that time. As I've told you again earlier, the internal rules of the previous Sanggunian, although not automatically carried over, pagdating sa present sanggunian, in the absence of such rules na na-adapt nila, the previous rules can be considered as part of parliamentary practice, which they can now observe. So therefore, any internal discipline, pwede nilang kunin as yardstick yung practice in that sanggunian. Kasi hindi pa naman nila na-adapt or na-update. Now, perhaps ang question ni Philip is, pwede ba ang disorderly behavior was committed prior to the adoption? So at the time, hindi pa na-adapt, nag-disorderly behavior na. Okay, ang sagot, the previous internal rules can be applied as parliamentary practice. So therefore, for as long as there is a majority vote, it is considered majority decision of the sanggunian. Pero dapat i-advise ni Philip, yung sanggunian, to avoid future legal complications again on this matter. Dapat i-adapt na nila kaagad para very clear na ang rules. For the meantime, pwedeng i-argue na at that point in time, hindi pwedeng walang rules. Meron talaga parliamentary practice.
Okay, so
Thank you po, attorney.
that clears it up. Meron pa pong
Po.
tanong? Abangan
Yes po, Sir
Okay.
Dave.
Oo, please introduce yourself kung saan pong region po tayo, no, para ma-ano po tayo, ma-address po ni attorney po kayo.
Hello po, attorney. I'm Micah Colancio from Region 8. Yung
Okay.
question ko lang po is with regards to the conduct of session and in view of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay?
Today po kasi a lot of sangguniang bodies are conducting their session through Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
Would it be valid na po ba siya? Kasi di ba nire-require talaga that you should.
Okay. Ganito po yun, no? This pandemic is a novel issue. First time. The first time was in 1919, Spanish flu, and the second time, ito yung pandemic. So very novel na all are new. Walang set of rules pa for the meantime. So, if only to comply with IATF guidelines on social distancing, etc., the body, the sanggunian, may adopt a resolution that their session shall be held by Zoom meeting. So there has to be an enabling resolution that will authorize the Zoom meeting. Hindi lang yung basta lang mag-agree sila usap-usap o mag-Zoom tayo. So ang other members, hindi siya naka-attend sa Zoom. So there has to be an agreement. There has to be a resolution. Now, query, paano sila mag-resolution, attorney? Hindi nga sila nakapag-convene. So pwedeng kunin by random votes o ano tayo. At alam nyo, ang ano ko dyan, ang take ko dyan, this is the first time, all things are new, all are novel, hindi natin alam pa talaga, nagbago lahat. So, itong technology could be part of our life now. So for as long as nag-agree sila na i-Zoom nila, majority of them agreed to do it, then it's valid. For me, it's valid.
Thank you, attorney. But to make it clear lang po, wala pa pong DILG opinion or memorandum allowing such session to be conducted through Zoom or any social platform.
So, are you asking me or you are telling me?
No,
na wala
I'm
pang
asking
DILG
actually, sir,
guidance?
kasi I'm actually curious about the legal implications of the
Okay.
resolution ordinances na mga approved during the Zoom meeting.
Okay. Para sa akin, I don't know with the DILG, no? Kung meron na bang in-issue, I think LGA can answer that. Kung meron na bang in-issue in case of any prohibition, etc., or any allowance. But for me, if only to comply with IATF guidelines during that time, yung ECQ, under that ECQ, no one is allowed to go out the house, restricted lahat, and we cannot allow government to stop its operations. There has to be some other way. And as I've told you, this is a novel situation because hindi lahat ganito sa buong buhay natin. Ito ngayon talagang kakaiba ito. So lahat ay nasa try and test setup. Lahat ay pinag-aaralan. But for me, if only not to stop or interrupt the functioning of the Sanggunian, then I would say na part of their adopted internal rules, pwede sila mag-adapt kaagad. That in compliance with IATF guidelines, our meetings, our sessions shall be held in a Zoom. So no need to wait for any guidance from higher up. For as long as they agreed by way of their own resolution na mag-Zoom session sila, I don't think mayroong legal question on that.
Okay po. Thank you, Attorney.
Thank you po. Other questions?
Hello.
Ma'am, nag-e-echo po kayo. Maybe you have to adjust something in your system. Pakilala po tayo, ma'am, at saka from what region are we? We are, no? So kung sakaling para maano tayo ni attorney, ma-address fully. Okay, what's your question, ma'am?
Hello po, good afternoon. Si Sheena po from Region 8. Ang question ko lang po regarding po sa pag-sign po ng Vice Mayor in his acting capacity as Mayor po. Kasi
Okay.
meron po kasing ordinance granting franchise para po sa pag-operate ng cockpit sa isang munisipyo. Yung
Okay.
nag-certify po dun sa ordinance is the Vice Mayor. Pero
Okay.
bago po siya na forward sa mayor, umalis na po papuntang US ang mayor.
Mayor? Okay.
Opo. So, after that, yung vice mayor na po ang umupo in his acting capacity. Yung tanong ko po, pwede po bang ang mag-sign po para sa approval ng franchise yung vice mayor pa rin nung sa ordinance?
Yung acting mayor ang mag-sign ng ordinance, tama?
Opo,
Yun yung query mo.
Opo, bali dalawa na po yung bali dalawa na po yung
Signature
lalabas
siya.
na
Okay.
pirma.
Ganito yon. You examine section 46 of the local code. And under section 46 of the local code, in case of temporary vacancy of the local chief executive due to legal or physical reasons, the vice shall immediately automatically shall immediately assume as acting mayor and can perform all the functions of the mayor except the power to dismiss, suspend, etc. Of course, alam niyo na yan, memorize niyo na yan, which can only be done, blah, blah, blah. So therefore, as acting mayor, there is no doubt that he can perform all the functions of the mayor. So your query now, can he approve it? Okay. Yung pinagbabawal, hindi naman bawal siya actually, but look upon with disfavor by the Supreme Court, kasi ano siya, parang it is not in accord with separation of powers. Ang medyo hindi tinitingnan na tama ng Supreme Court ay kung the same capacity. Yun bang vice mayor siya, tapos in the same capacity, yung wala siyang binitawan sa dalawa, yung nagba-vice mayor pa rin siya, tapos in his capacity as acting mayor, nagpipirma siya, yun yung klarong violation. Pero in this case, at that time, siya ang vice mayor, siya ang nag-attest, siya ang nag-certify, but now that he will sign the ordinance, he is signing it in a different capacity. Not as vice mayor, but as acting mayor. So yung what is being prohibited by the Supreme Court in that case of Gamboa versus Aguirre is yung situations where yung concurrent, nagba-vice mayor siya, tapos pagkatapos siya mag-vice mayor, nagpipreside siya, tapos kinatanghalian, punta na siya sa office ng mayor, nagme-mayor-mayor din siya doon, Yun ang sabi ng Supreme Court, violation of separation of powers. So therefore, kung titingnan natin, kung nag-session at si Mayor nandyan pa, siya naman ay Vice Mayor din at that time, okay pa yon. Now, if in the meantime, there was a supervening event, umalis si Mayor, at that time, naging acting na siya, then he will be approving or she will be approving the enacted ordinance in a different capacity, this time as acting mayor. So there is no legal problem on that.
Okay, thank you po.
Okay, so
Okay.
questions?
Magandang hapon po.
Opo.
Carlo po ito
Good afternoon.
from Region 3, Province of Pampanga. Meron po bang legal na paraan para ma-waive po ang requirement ng posting ng isang ordinance with penal sanction para mag-take effect po siya immediately upon passing?
Okay po. Wala siyang ibang paraan. In fact, mas mabuti pa ang publish. If you will note, magkaiba ang publication, ha? Publication and posting are two different things. Ang posting is a constant. Whether with penal sanctions or wala penal sanction, there has to be posting. However, if the ordinance carries with it penal sanctions, then there is a requirement of publication in a newspaper of provincial circulation. However, should there be no newspaper of provincial circulation, the requirement is posting in each municipal hall in the entire province. So kung makita nyo, yung posting as a requirement talaga yon whether penal or hindi. Ipopost mo sa conspicuous place, etc. Now, kung merong penal sanction, posting plus publication. If, however, there is no newspaper available sa provincial circulation, then in lieu thereof, posting in every municipality is required. Kaya hindi siya ma-waive talaga. It is part of due process.
Okay po. Attorney, follow-up po. Meron po kasing HUC ang nag-implement ng ordinance na may penal sanction during pandemic. At ito po ay in-implement nila immediately na hindi pa po tapos ang posting period at ang publication period. Kung ako po ay isa sa mga nahuli sa ordinance na yon, ano po ang pwede kong gawin?
Hello?
Hello po.
Sorry, may tumawag kaya na-interrupt ako.
Ulitin ko po yung question. Meron pong isang HUC during the pandemic, nung kasalukuyan po ng mga lockdowns, ang nag-implement ng ordinance with penal sanction na in-implement po nila na hindi pa tapos ang posting at publication period.
Okay.
Kung ako po ay isa sa mga nahuli, ano po ang pwede kong gawin noon?
Okay. As I've told you earlier, validity and effectivity are two different things. An ordinance may be found to be valid, but not effective for failure to comply with requirements of law. In this case, ang iyong issue ay hindi na post, hindi na publish, pero nailabas siya. Now, ikaw ay nahuli sa ordinansa. Now, ano ang pwede mong i-argue para madepensahan ang sarili mo? Ang answer is, sabihin mo lang, for failure to observe Section 59, the ordinance cannot yet be considered effective. So, not being effective yet, hindi pa siya pwedeng ma-implement. So, yan yung sinasabi ko sa palagi, itong mga sanggunian, that they should put they should put importance sa budget on posting, sa budget on publication because they might need it later on. Pagdating sa passage ng ordinansa, they may need to publish it, etc. So that's correct. No observation, highly urbanized city, naglabas ng ordinansa, its ordinance might be valid, pero for failure to comply with the requirements of Section 59 and somewhere section in the latter part, I think that's somewhere in 500 something, where publication is required, then effectivity can be put into question. Pwede ma-question ang effectivity. That will be a good defense later on sa court.
Salamat po, Attorney.
Okay. Meantime, habang nandyan pa tayo sa puntong mga publication na yan, we have to distinguish public hearing between public hearing and publication. Marami po dyan sa field, kahit mga tauhan na natin, mga MLGO na, who are confused sa distinction between public hearing and publication. Ang buong akala nila pareho lang. Magkaiba po ang public hearing sa publication. So if the question is, lahat ba ng ordinansa kailangan ang public hearing? The answer is no. No. Public hearing is not required in enacting ordinances. But there are certain kinds of ordinance under the local code that the law itself requires public hearing. Again, get the premise. General rule. Passage of ordinance as a general rule does not require public hearing. But there are certain kinds of ordinances where the local code requires public hearing as a matter of validity. Ano to? Okay. I'll write this down. Section 186, tax ordinances. Public hearing is a requirement. No public hearing, ordinance validity is affected. Okay? Tax ordinances. Number 2, reclassification of lands under Section 20. When a local government unit, city or municipality reclassifies a land, passage done through ordinance, public hearing is required. Okay? Ilan na tayo? Number 3, transfer of seat of government under Section 11. There's a need of public hearing. When we say seat of government, we are referring to the municipal hall, provincial capital. Ito yung seat of government. Public hearing is a requirement. Number 4, Section 33 of the local code. Ang Section 33 pertains to interlocal governmental cooperation. And should there be contribution of public properties or contribution of public money, public hearing is required. And number 5, if by motion in the session, it has been approved that this particular ordinance be subjected to public hearing, then it is subjected to public hearing. Query. So again, balikan natin. Kailangan ng public hearing? 1, Section 186. 2, Section 11. Transfer of seat of government, yung 186, tax ordinances. 3, reclassification of land, Section 20. 4, Section 33, intergovernmental cooperation, but only if there is contribution of public funds or property. Number 5, if by motion it was agreed that this particular ordinance shall undergo public hearing. So ano lang ang pagkakaiba dito? No public hearing in 1, 2, 3, and 4 will affect the validity of the ordinance. No public hearing conducted in number 5, yung motion, it will not affect validity of the ordinance. Remember the Arroyo versus De Venisa ruling? It was a mere motion, hindi nila nasunod, it will not affect validity. Pero yung mga public hearing required by law, then it will affect validity. So, public hearing is determined by certain kinds of provisions in the local code. those I mentioned. Publication, on the other hand, is governed by Section 59 of the Local Code. Public hearing affects validity of the ordinance. Publication affects effectivity of the ordinance. So nakita niyo ang distinction? So for that matter, you read the case of Hagunoy versus public market. Merong kasong Hagunoy dyan, yung ano nila, yung sa public hearing. So you will be asked, so attorney, paano yan kung sa public hearing, di ang daming mag-attend, ang dami kaming pag-isipin, baka magdebate, hindi kami matapos. You teach your Sanggunian to not engage the public in a debate. Just invite mga stakeholders and let them speak during that particular session and listen to them. After that, pasalamatan sila for attending. Ang debate will later on happen sa plenary ng Sanggunian. Sila ang magdebate, hindi ang public. Kasi kung debatihin nila ang public, naka-4 na terms na sila, wala pang ma-approve na ordinance. Okay, so hindi nila kakayanin yon. So huwag nilang debatihin. Pakinggan lang, then ang Sanggunian members ang magdebate. So normally sa invitation for a public hearing, dapat i-require na ni Vice Mayor or Secretary ng Sanggunian na ang mga naimbita sa public hearing ay mag-submit ng kanilang position papers. In which case, the Secretary of the Sanggunian will reproduce the position papers and distribute it among the members. And in the next session, tayo magdebate. Pag may nakita ng Sanggunian na mayroong isang magandang pwede lang ipatawag ulit. This time, hindi na public hearing. Doon na sa session ng Sanggunian. So, try to distinguish that. Publication. So, going back to the query kanina, publication is very important to determine effectivity. So, pag hindi na-publish, when the law requires publication, hindi na-post, when the law requires posting, it will affect validity. Publication affects, effectivity. Sorry, ang posting sa publication would affect effectivity. Public hearing would affect validity. Okay? I hope clear, ha?
Okay, so clear na po yung ating po doon. Meron pa po. Okay. Mukhang andyan pa ba kayo? Baka wala na kayo, umuwi na kayo.
Okay nga, baka
Dito po.
Dito pa, sir.
Isip lang po ng
matulong ng mga ito.
Dito po po.
Okay, sa kasi yung panahon ni Sir, no? So, may mga tanong pa po ba kayo or query kay Sir so that we could excuse Atty. Moreno? So, everything is clear.
Clear na ba o hindi kayo nakinig kaya walang tanong?
Clear po.
Sabi ko sa inyo, one slide lang si Sir. So, it's up to you. It's in your, to jot down notes. So, kung clear naman sa inyo, then that will be your, na po. Okay. Clear na tayo. So, we can thank Atty. Moreno for joining us in this afternoon session on parliamentary rules. So, Atty. Moreno, thank you very much for joining us here po sa aming training, no? Tama po sinabi niyo, this is the first time we are doing this online at itong LGO training ay halos lahat ng ating mga modules dito ay ginawa namin online. So napakahirap pero we are surviving naman po with the technology. Mahina sa ibang mga regions pero nakaka-survive pa rin kami na So it's maybe we need to embrace this pa rin yata for another year until that vaccine is available in our country. So
kaya nga actually itong online talaga is a new one, no? This is a new approach.
Opo.
And in fact, I would like to thank LGA and Batch 53 for giving me this opportunity. na maging resource speaker ninyo. And sabi ko nga sa wife ko kanina, sabi ko, kasi I have been teaching College of Law from 1995 to present. Pero for the present semester, I filed my leave of absence. Kasi nga, online ang teaching. So nahirapan ako mag-online. Hindi ako sanay. Kaya sabi ko, mag-leave na lang muna ako magturo. But when LGA invited me to lecture sa online dito sa Bus 53, since my heart still belongs to DILG, hindi ko siya ni-refuse kasi mahal ko pa rin ang department. Kaya kahit nasa ibang service na ako, nasa City of Manila ako, pag may problema kayo sa Manila, I am the City Legal Officer of Mayor Isko.
Wow.
But still, mahal ko pa rin ang mga taga-DILG. Kaya pag may query lang, ang dami pa rin nagtitext sa akin eh. Ang mga iba, hindi na nagtitext dahil retired na. Pero marami pa rin nagtitext. May mga queries. Okay lang, I can answer pag may queries. So salamat LGA, salamat Batch 53. Daghang nagpasalamat din niyo mga Bisaya.
Daghang salamat, Atty.
Salamat.
Salamat, Atty.
Salamat, Atty. Palikabs po kami kay Mayor Isko.
Salamat. Salamat po.
Salamat po,
Atty.
po.
Salamat, sir.
Attorney.
Thank you, attorney.
Salamat, Atty. Thank you po, Atty.
Sa Davao Sige, salamat.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, salamat.
Thank you po.
Salamat, sir.
Sige. Bye-bye. Salamat.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, so
Sige po.
So we had a very engaging session with Atty. Moreno this afternoon. So I hope you jot down a lot of notes because this will be coming in your quiz. And probably it will also be seen also in your module exam. So napaka-importante po itong mga last lessons natin, most likely this will be this will be in the exams, in the module exam next Tuesday. So Tuesday na ngayon, no? So next Tuesday will be your exam. Ang bilis, no? We just have nag-start lang tayo ng November 30. Now we're nearing the end of module 4. And then yun nga, we'll go to module 5 for next year. Okay, so are we ready for the quiz this afternoon?
Sir Dave,
Yes.
may concern lang ako sa quiz. Pwede tayong mag-usap tayo lang with Ma'am Lisa and Lisette regarding sa quiz?
Sa quiz for today?
Yes, kasi may concern ako.
Okay. Sige po.
Na hindi nila pwede marinig.
Po, sige. So, we will dismiss them po ngayon kasi it's an early dismissal naman po, 3:30 naman po. So we can dismiss our apprentices and they'll come back na lang po for the quiz na lang po later. Attorney?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so for tomorrow we will be having AVP presentation, as what I've said in the morning. So we can start siguro a little bit late, no, 9 o'clock na lang para yung iba ay makakagawa naman din ng ibang mga gawain. Kasi one video lang yun, but you need also to review after that, no? And then in the afternoon, we'll be having Atty. Lucero again for the taxation and LGU sources of revenues. Yan. So yan ang mga topics po in the afternoon. So Barangay Matatag, as usual, sorry, paulit-ulit. Ganun talaga ako eh. Ang start ng inyong hosting will be during Atty. Lucero's session in the afternoon po. Okay, so with that, we'll dismiss and then alam niyo naman kung anong oras naman yung quiz, no? Okay, so thank you very much for listening and I hope
Sir Dave, good afternoon po.
Opo.
Sir Dave, hanggang ngayon hindi po ako makapasok sa LMS.
Sa LMS? Yung sa
Yes
akin
po, Sir Dave.
Can you try na lang po ulit? By the way, yun nga yung tatanong ko kasi LMS, nag-work na po sa akin ngayon. Kanina hindi ito nag-work kaninang umaga. Maybe you could try it again. Okay.
Deny ko po, Sir Dave, hindi talaga makapasok.
How about the others?
Incognito ko pa rin, hindi pa rin po ako makapasok.
Ma'am, how about the others po?
Sa amin
Dave?
po, sir, okay din. Okay na po.
Okay na
Okay.
po.
Okay na,
Ako lang
sir.
kasi dito sa Bukidnon, sir.
Sa
Dave?
Region 10.
Oo, sa Bukidnon. Ako lang mag-isa dito sa Malaybalay.
Dave?
Hello?
Oo. Dave, siguro yung mga concern nila regarding sa LMS, mag-ano na lang tayo, magpapa-announce na lang tayo later. After natin siguro i-discuss ni Atty. Ian regarding dun sa quiz. So standby lang muna, pero as of this time, since marami naman nakaka-access, so tuloy yung quiz.
Sir Dave,
Ma'am.
5:30 din po yung oras na nandun sa LMS ngayon sa amin. 5:30
Yes,
po ba?
yes. Oo,
Okay.
kung ano yung sa oras sa LMS, yun.
Thank you po, ma'am.
Mm-mm. Opo.
Okay.
Ay, pahabol po, yung access po sa reflection ay makukuha lang kapag natapos yung quiz. Baka po pwede nang pabuksan.
Let's see, sige. Tanungin ko si Sir Mike kung pwede na siya pabuksan sa reflection.
So,
Okay, other concerns?
Hello
Check
po.
your LMS po, no?
Hello po, Sir Dave.
Yes, sir.
From Region 8. Parang ngayon din lang po, nagka-problema din yung access ko sa LMS.
So you cannot access it now?
Yes, sir. Pero kanina na-access ko to.
Aha. Okay.
Mga
Bad gateway po
minutes ago.
nakalagay.
Oh,
Same
bad
din
gateway.
po, Sir Dave.
Bad gateway.
Bad
Ay,
gateway.
oo nga. Nag-refresh.
Yes po, same din.
Ayun lang po.
Same din, sir, Dave.
Same din po.
din po.
Pagka-refresh
Uy,
po.
sir.
Bad gateway na po.
If you're talaga 5 hindi nyo
Sir,
ma-access.
dito bad gateway na rin siya.
Okay. So, ganito na lang, ha? Para makapag-start kami ng discussion regarding dyan. So, leave na lang muna kayo, then mag-a-announce kami. Kasi yan din yung aming pinag-uusapan ngayon.
Noted,
Okay
ma'am.
po. Thank you
po.
po. Listen.
Thank you po.
Bye.
They know na kung anong result o kung anong ang
Bye po.
pinag-anuhan natin. How will they know? We will relate.
Thank you po.
How will we relate to them kung ano diniscuss natin o ano na-finalize natin? Kasi bad gateway na rin ako, no? Kanina this was working. Jumping for joy pa nga ako nang umandar eh. Ngayon hindi na. I don't like you na. Yan.
Sir, bumalik na po, sir.
Bumalik na naman? Ano ba to?
Yes
Bigo?
po, yes.
Sige.
Oh,
Discuss
talaga
natin
yung-
yan then para magkaroon na ng decision regarding
Oo, sige. Ano muna tayo exit then we will inform you po, no? Kaya very short lang itong meeting na to just to finalize things and make a decision regarding this. Okay? Sige po.
Sige po.
Okay.
Maraming
Thank you
salamat.
po.
Bye-bye po.
Sir Dave.
Sabi ni Atty. Moreno,
Thank you po.
nagsa-start talaga tayo sa isang panahon na hindi natin talaga isipin na mangyayari sa atin. So talagang may mga ganitong jitters talaga mangyayari. Okay, so thank you very much for coming and then we'll inform you po later po, no, regarding the result of our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you po.
Thank you po, Sir Dave. Ma'am Lizette, thank you po.
Salamat po.
Thank you po.
Reflection po.
Thank you po.